we're going to be covering kind of the basics of hard money, some of the vocabulary words related to and associated with hard money. We're going to go through a couple of test deals, and then I'm going to show you how to market and expand your business so that you're making more money more often with more deals. Now, today is going, for some of you, today is going to seem a little elementary at the start because we are going to cover some of the basic core principles of hard money lending and those types of things. But then we are going to get into the more detailed, more cumbersome, more exciting in my opinion, because as we get deeper into the training here this morning and this afternoon, I'm going to show you guys how you can start making massive amounts of money using the hard money training and using hard money as a business. So I don't know how many of you out there are actively pursuing hard money as an income stream, but if you are not, and all I can tell you is please get started with it because it's truly, truly an amazing thing that you can make a substantial amount of money with. Now, my other goal for all of you today is my office has been getting a ton of submissions, which we appreciate. However, I know many of you are getting frustrated with my office because we're not able to fund a lot of the deals that we have coming in. And the reason for that is the deals that many of you are bringing to us just don't qualify for hard money loans. So I want to really make sure everyone has clarity as to what makes a good hard money loan and what doesn't make a good hard money loan. Basically, what kind of deals does money love? And that's really what we're pursuing here today. Now, to kind of get us started and everyone thinking alike and on the same page, if you would please go to the homework assignment that was sent out to you. You should have downloaded that so you have it. Actually, I'm going to do this. We'll just go this way. Whoops. There's that back. Okay. And all right. So here was the homework review assignments. Let's see what you know. Question number 1. You borrow $100,000 from Uncle Frank at 12% interest. What would the simple interest monthly payments be? Now guys, if you have to get a calculator out for this one, it's probably good that you're on the call. It's actually quite simple. We just take $100,000 at 12% interest and it gives us $12,000 annually. Okay? So the simple interest monthly payment would merely be the $12,000 in interest divided by the number of months, which is $1,000 a month. So the question is, what's the simple interest monthly payment? And that's something to note when you're doing hard money loans is that interest is typically, not always, but typically interest only. Why? Because as hard money lenders, whether it's your money or my money, I don't want you paying down the principal. I just want you to pay me the interest return, because if I charge you principal and interest, certainly I'm going to be getting a higher monthly payment, but you're going to be paying down the principal balance, which means I'm not earning as much money on interest. And that's really what we're interested in, is the interest. Question number 2. What would the simple interest payment be if you borrowed $100,000 from Uncle Frank at 6% interest? So again, another very simple calculation. We merely take $100,000 at 6%. The question is, what is the monthly payment? So we divide it by 12. And that gives us, of course, $500 per month. Question number 3, what is your net profit if you lend $100,000 all year and have a 20% annualized return? Well, if we lend $100,000 in a year and we earn a 20% annualized return, we made $20,000. So our annualized yield in this case would be a 20% annualized return on investment. All right. Question 4. What is the most that you would lend on a deal currently valued at $100,000 in order to achieve 65% loan to value? And guys, I know that these questions are simple and they're rudimentary, but I want to make sure we're all starting at the same spot. So if we take $100,000 times 65%, it gives us $65,000 is the 65% loan to value that we could lend on this deal. Now question number 5. What is the most you would lend on a deal currently valued at $100,000 but worth $250,000 after completion in order to achieve 65% loan to value? Now, this was actually a trick question, okay? Many of you probably took the $250,000 and you just figured, well, 65% of 250 would be 162.5, all right? So if you did that deal analysis, here's the issue, and this is why many of you are not getting your deals funded. Many of you are bringing a deal like this to my office and saying, hey Lee, it's worth $250, after repaired value $250, I want to borrow 65%. Some people have also taken it to the point where, Lee, I need $100,000 for acquisition. After repaired value is $250, so I need the $100,000 for acquisition, and 65% on the dollar leaves me $62,500 in cash, and I would like cash out of this transaction so that I have money to fix it up. Not going to work, guys, all right? If you want to simplify hard money and literally guarantee that every deal you bring in is going to get funded, always ask yourself this one question. Here it is. If it were my money, okay, so if you're personally going to write this check, would you give the borrower on this deal $162,500? Because I wouldn't. Why? The acquisition price is $100,000. The borrower in scenario number 5 has no skin in the game, meaning if I give them $100,000 to buy the property, $62,500 in cash at closing to fix it up, what happens if they walk away? Well, now I'm left with a property that hasn't been renovated or repaired. I've got a $162,500 lien on it, and it's only worth $100,000, probably less now, because when you lend money like that, and I know this from experience, when you do loan transactions like that, what happens is you give the borrower money for the acquisition, you give the borrower the money for the fix-up and repair, they go in there and they start ripping out kitchens and bathrooms and sheetrock and all kinds of issues. They become disenchanted with the opportunity, and then they just bounce. They walk. Why? Well, they've got no skin in the game. They're running out of fix-up and rehab money, and they just figure, well, why continue with this deal? Let's just let it go to foreclosure, and the hard money lender can take it back. Well, now I'm left with a house worth substantially less than $100,000, and that's just not a good thing. So question number 6. Question number 6. Project is currently worth $150,000. Project is currently worth $160,000. I'm sorry, $150,000. Borrower needs to borrow $130,000 and will put up $20,000 in cash but has no additional collateral. And the question is, would you lend on this project? And again, notice where we're going here. I'm asking, would you lend? Would you put up your money on this transaction? The property is currently worth $150,000. Borrower wants to borrow $130,000 and will put up $20,000 in cash but has no additional collateral. So they need to borrow $130,000. Now, here's the issue. If they're borrowing $130,000 and the property is worth $150,000, if you do the simple math calculation on this, this deal is at 87 cents on the dollar. 87 cents. Now, they said they can put $20,000 down, which means the amount they'll need to borrow now drops to $110,000. But put that at $150,000, we're still at 73 cents on the dollar. Now, remember the threshold. We can only lend 65 cents on the dollar, and that's all we can lend. So even though they have to put up, even though they have $20,000 to put up, it's still not enough to bring us to the low enough threshold. Now, here's where a lot of you might be missing out on some potential revenue. Watch, okay? If the property is worth $150,000, but they're buying it for $130,000, we always want to base it on what they're paying, okay? And here's another reason many of you aren't getting your deals funded. You're basing your 65% loan to value on the ARV, or the after repaired value. So you should all be taking note. Please write down ARV, ARV, which is after repaired value, all right? We only lend 65% of the purchase price or the appraisal, whichever's lower, okay? Purchase price or the appraisal, whichever is lower. And so what's happening is, many of you are coming in, we got a deal from a guy just yesterday, and he wants to borrow $100,000 on a house that he has under contract for $40,000. And I said, why in the world would we fund this? He says, well, the after repaired value, I've got an appraisal to prove it. After repaired value is $150,000, so I want to borrow $100,000. I said, but your purchase price is $40,000. He says, yeah, I know. I said, well, we can lend 65% of $40,000, but we can't lend any more than that. Oh, well, what, you know. Guys, understand, my fiduciary duty to my investors is to make sure their money is going into good investments. On the contrary, or the converse of that, my fiduciary responsibility and duty to all of you is to make sure that you're not buying bad deals. And man, I'll tell you, in the last week alone, we have stopped close to 12 investors from buying bad deals. And so that's another point I want to make here at the top of this. If you're getting no, either from my office or any other hard money lender out there, it's because your deal is too risky. As lenders, ultimately what we're looking for here is a high yield, low risk. But many of you are bringing deals that are both high yield and very high risk. And we just can't fund those. And nobody can fund those. So if you're getting involved with me in my program because you think that we're just going to write checks for everything, no. We're a for-profit business. So we've got to make sure that the deals you're bringing to us are not only going to make you money, but that they're going to make us money. Because we don't want you losing money, and I don't want my investors who are putting up the money or putting up the cash losing money. So you got to understand, we want to fund. We don't make a single cent until we give you money on your deals. So we want to give you money, believe me. But we also want to make sure that the deals you're bringing are going to be good investments that provide a safe return on investment for you and a safe return of investment for our private money lenders. So on this deal, how do we salvage this thing? Well, the borrower says they can put up $20,000 in cash. They're paying $130,000. We can lend up to 65% of the acquisition price of $130,000, which is $84,500. All right. Now the borrower needs $130,000. They're putting up $20,000, so they're short from $110,000. The difference is they need an additional $25,500 in cash or collateral. So please write this down. When you're dealing with people who need money on real estate investment opportunities, if you're going to be brokering the deal, make sure that if they're short on the amount of money that you need, that you don't say you need to bring more cash to the table. Because when people hear the word cash, they immediately shut down. They immediately say things like, oh, I don't need any cash. Hey, Mike, did we get this plugged in? No. Okay. Don't say that you need cash. What we need is we need additional collateral, additional participation for the investment. So 25.5, the difference between what they need to borrow and what they're putting into the deal, the difference between those two numbers doesn't have to come in the form of cash. It can come in the form of collateral, and here's an important point. It does not necessarily have to be their collateral. If they've got a friend or a family member with another piece of property that has equity in it, that could work just as well as cash, okay? Or they can borrow cash against a credit card or bring in a partner or a co-signer or somebody with a stronger portfolio. There's a lot of ways to accomplish this. You just can't be pigeonholed into thinking that cash means cash. Cash means participation of some kind where we're collateralizing the deal to make the investment safer for everyone that's getting involved in this thing. Okay? Question number 7. How much will be paid if the lender charges 4 points on a $275,000 loan? Well, that one's really quite simple. We're just going to take $275,000 times 0.04. And guys, I know there's a delay on what I'm doing on the calculator here. $275,000 at 4 points, as you can see on your screen there, is $11,000. Okay, $11,000 is what they would pay on points for this particular investment opportunity. Okay, $11,000 on points. Now let's go to question number 8. How much will the lender earn during the first month on a $125,000 loan at 16% interest? How much would they earn? Well, if we take $125,000 at 16%, $125,000 times 0.016 means they're going to earn $2,000 a month. We can do it differently as well. We can go $125,000 at 0.16, which gives us $20,000. So guys, if you make a $125,000 investment at 16% interest, you're going to earn $20,000 for the year. Now the question is, number 8, how much will the lender earn during the first month on a $125,000 loan? Well, you can either take the $20,000 that we came up with and divide by 12, which is $16,666.67, or you can take the $125,000 at 0.016. We're going to have to amortize that. So do it this way. It's easier. Just take 125,000 times 0.16, which is your annualized yield. Divide that by 12, which will then give you your monthly payments. Okay? Everybody see that? All right, good. All right, question number 9. How much will the lender have earned after 2 months on a $125,000 loan at 16% interest? Now, there's a couple of ways to answer this question, because as you can see, we're carrying the balance from question number 8 down to question number 9. In question number 8, it was how much do they earn on the first month? Question number 9 is how much do they earn on the after 2 months? So this is a 60-day period of time. Now, the reason this can go one of two ways is, are you as a hard money lender requiring that the borrower make monthly payments to you, or are you escrowing the amount of the monthly payments and attaching it onto the principal balance owed? So it would look like this. If we're going to escrow payments, meaning the borrower who we're lending to isn't going to make monthly payments. They're not going to make monthly interest payments. They're not going to send us checks. We're just going to allow those monthly payments to stack up on top of the $125,000 in principal. And let me illustrate it this way. Okay, can you all see my page? If you guys would, real quick, Cherie or Judith or one of you that's got my cell phone number, shoot me a text and let me know that you can see this white piece of paper on the Elmo unit. Shoot me a text and let me know that you can see that. Okay, thanks, Judith. All right, guys, I got it. Thank you. All right, so let me show you how this breaks down. We've got a $125,000 loan, and we're charging 16% interest, and remember that is per year, so that's annual, or that's 16% interest per annum, all right? So here's how this breaks down. We're going to take the 125 at 16%, which gives us $16,666.67 monthly, okay? That is our per month fee. However, if we were to just take this times 2, because remember the question is how much is this monthly, what are we going to earn over 2 months? You'll see that it's $3,333.33. Okay? This makes the assumption that the borrower is going to deliver to us real-time monthly payments. All right? Now, if you want to make more money or a higher yield on your investment, here's what you do. Rather than having the borrower make payments to you, go ahead and take this monthly payment and just attach it to the principal. So the principal loan is $125. We're now going to add to it $1,666.67, which gives us a new principal balance that they're going to be paying interest on for the following month, $667 at $208,333.750 or 75. All right. Now we're going to take 16% interest on that. So if we take that number now times 0.16 divided by 12, the monthly charge on this now is $2,777.78. Okay? So effectively what we've done is, as you can see, by charging a higher interest or by attaching the principal, look at what it did to the monthly payment. And that calculated out wrong. Let me do this again. 28333.75 at 0.16. Okay, that's better. Divided by 12. Nope, that's where we went wrong. Okay, so it's $2,777.78. Holy smokes. Okay, you guys are all like, Lee, what in the world are you doing? Because this math is all wrong. Here's what I did, guys. See where I screwed up? I took 125 plus 166, and I got 208. And you're all thinking, Lee, what in the world? That's crazy. All right, let's do this different. All right, scratch that. Start over. 125,000. Remember that the first month of interest was 166.67. So we're going to add those two together. 125 plus 166667. All right. Woo! Guys, it is early here in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm still working on my first cup of coffee, so you're going to have to forgive me. 126,666.67. So now we're going to take 16% of that, and here's what we get. 20,266.67 divided by 12. Okay, so a new monthly payment of $1688.89. What's the difference here? By carrying this over that month, by having them not send us payments, we made an extra $22.22. Okay? Now, if you continue to compound this, and if you guys do not have the piece of software that I've created, it's actually in your Hard Money Mastery Home Study course. And if you're on this call, you have it, so make sure you get it out of your package. It will actually do these calculations for you, and you can tell it if you want it to compound daily, monthly, annually, how you want it to compound. But basically, if we can earn an extra $22.22 a month, and then if we did it another month, we would earn even more. But let's get down to the question. The question to number 8 to number 9 can be one of two answers. It's either the 1666.67 plus the 1688.89. So the answer could be $3,055.56, or it can simply be $3,333.33. Okay, a difference of $22.22. The only difference between the top and the bottom is on the bottom one here, the borrower is making monthly payments. So if you're going to lend for cash flow, meaning you want income streams, then you would want to have them pay you simple interest payments each and every month. If you're lending to maximize yield, then what you would want to do is take the monthly fees and attach them to the principal and then earn 16% on that as well. Okay? Now, if you understand anything about compounding interest, that really is the fastest way for you to generate wealth, is to not require those monthly payments. But if you're running money for a hedge fund or a REIT or some type of larger pension plan or something like that, they're going to want those monthly payments. And we're going to talk later today about getting involved in lending pension fund monies. And the reason why it's so lucrative is they have millions, billions of dollars, and they're all really struggling right now because the investments that they put money into, a lot of these pension plans were buying subprime loans. And I don't want to get too technical on you this early in the morning, but be aware, it's a huge opportunity if you know how to tap into those resources. Question number 10. What is the annualized yield on the above loan? Okay. Now, the above loan was for 60 days. Okay. So this loan was 60 days, and we made a total profit over the 60 days, and I'm going to use this one below and assume that they paid us monthly. So we made $3,333.33, which is 16% per annum interest. Okay. Now the question is, what is the annualized yield on the loan? And follow me here, guys, because this is really important. To get the annualized yield, you have to determine how many times you can actually do this loan in a 12-month period of time. Now, if the loan is only 60 days, if you take 360, which is the financial calendar year, take 360, divide it by 60, what you get is 6. Now, what 6 represents is the number of times that 60 days happens in a 360-day calendar. I know, simple, right? Well, if we take the amount of interest that we earned on the term, okay? Now remember, the term interest is the amount that we earned over the period of time. The annualized yield is how much we're going to earn during the length of this loan. So if we were to take 6 points, or 6 times the 16% interest, this is a trick question, guys, because the annualized yield is still 16, all right? Now, the 60 days has no bearing in this matter because, as you can see on this deal, there were no points charged. Now, if you want to calculate annualized yield for a 12-month period of time with a 60-day term, you'd have to calculate in the points that you've earned and then add them to the annualized yield. Now, that was probably really confusing, but don't worry about it because I'm going to simplify it as we go on here, okay? All right, now, something else I want to point out for all of you. As we're going through here, I have activated the question portal, and as we get to the end of some of these sessions, I'm going to get into some Q&A. So as we're going through here, if you have a question, go ahead and pop it into the box there. And I already see people saying your interest edition is wrong. Yes, thank you, Jerry, I know. So I'm going to come back and visit these at the end. Now, if you're watching this at home at a later time, meaning you're watching the recording that we're doing here today, and we're clearly not live because you've now put me into your DVD player, if you have questions throughout, go ahead and email those to Lee. It's L-E-E. Let me give it to you, everybody. Email your questions here to Lee at imthesolution.com. Okay? So if you have questions here after this live presentation, go ahead and email them there. Okay, question 11. What is the daily yield on the above loan? The daily yield on the above loan. Well, to do that, we merely take the 16% per annum and divide it by 360, which means we're earning, and it's not carrying it out as far as it should, but it's effectively 0.0004% yield on the daily rate. Okay? Number 12, what will the lender's total earnings be on a $350,000 loan made at 3 points and 18% interest for 3 months? Okay? Now, this is one where we can have some fun. Now, if you think this is fun, you're officially as sick as I am, because I love this stuff. All right, we're going to take a $350,000 loan, and we're charging 3 points. Okay, now remember, points are nothing more than interest rates, so it's effectively 3%. And here's something else. Please make a note of this. Points are always front-end loaded. Okay? Now what that means is, if you're going to charge points, they immediately add to the principal balance that you're lending on. Now, points can carry in two forms. Form number one is you can merely attach the points to the principal. Form number two, if you're brokering and you want to get paid more quickly on deals, then what you're going to want to do is have the borrower bring cash to the closing table to fund the points so that you can get paid immediately. So if it's your money, guys, and you're looking to maximize your yield on your investment, my recommendation is to not require them to bring cash to the closing for points. Rather, wrap them into the loan so that you can earn interest on those as well. So if we take $350,000 at 3 points, what that means is they're going to pay $10,500 the minute they sign. So this is day they sign, we now have earned $10,500 from the moment they sign on this deal. Okay, because points are always front-end loaded. Now, what else do we have on this deal? It's an 18% interest for 3 months. Now, you can do this one of two ways. If we're going to go ahead and add the points to the principal, what that means is they now owe us $360,500. So we can either do our calculations based on that at 18%, which would look like this. 360, 500 at 18, divided by 12, gives us $5,407.50 per month times 3 months. Now, guys, I'm using simple interest here because, as you know, if they're not making monthly payments, this amount here is going to be added to the $360,500. Okay, so they're paying $16,222.50 over the 90-day term. 90-day term. Okay. Now, if we take this $16,222.50, add it to the points that we earned, which is $10,500, here's what we get. $26,722.50, and this is the amount that we earned in a 90-day period. Okay, so to calculate now our term yield, we're going to take 26,722, divide it by the amount lent, which was 350,000, which gives us an 8% term yield, okay? So on a $350,000 loan, we have made 8% in 90 days. Now, to annualize our yield, we just need to figure out how many times 90 days happens in a 360-day calendar year. So we take 360, divide it by 9, and what we get is 4. So if we can earn 8% on $350,000 in a 90-day period of time, we just then times it by the number of times 90 happens in a calendar year, which is 4. So we're going to take 8 times 4, which gives us a 32% annualized yield on the total loan. All right? So question number 14, somebody asked, what is the daily interest in dollars on the above loan? What is the daily interest in dollars? Well, we can do this one of two ways. If we're earning 32%, we can go like this. We can take 32% divided by 360 days, which gives us our daily interest rate. And this isn't running out as long as I would like it to. So our daily interest then would just be the 32% divided by the 360. Which gives us the 9, and it's really 0.00009. Another way to do it, however, is this. If we take what we're going to earn over the year on this loan, take 360,500 times 0.18, we're going to earn $64,890. Divide it by the 360, we're effectively earning $180.25 a day. Divide that by 350,000 that we lent, and again, it's zeroing out. So, question number 14. What is the annualized yield on the above loan? It's 32%. Okay? So, guys, if you're not earning 32% on your money, you should be doing this. Another point to note here is if you know people with cash and you grasp these concepts, you should be identifying them and showing them how to place money like this, because you could pay them, say, 20% return on investment, and you could keep 12. So if somebody wants to give you some money to lend out, and you're earning 32% annualized yields on the money, and you're paying out 20%, do you guys see that you're making 12% return on someone else's cash? So if somebody gives me $350,000 and I'm going to earn yield on it, how much do I earn if I take $350,000 and I earn 12%? I earn $42,000 per year lending out someone else's money. Not a bad gig, huh? All right. Okay, finally, question number 15. Ted wants to borrow $165,000 on a property currently worth $200,000. He will put up $10,000. What would you lend at what rate and with what conditions? Now, this is one you guys all need to be thinking about, because now this is putting it back in your court. So what are you going to pay? What are you going to charge Ted? So he wants to borrow $165 on a property currently worth $200,000. He will put up $10,000. Would you lend at what rate and with what conditions? Now, I've got a couple questions on this loan for Ted. My first question is this a purchase deal or is this a refinance transaction? If it's a purchase, I don't have a purchase price, and I can only lend 65 cents on the dollar of the purchase price. But if this is a refinance, then I can lend 65% on $200,000. Now, because he's going to put up $10,000, I'm going to make the assumption that he's buying the property. And if he needs $165 and he's going to put 10 in, he wants to borrow $155. Here's the thing, guys. The property, we can only lend 65 cents on the dollar of the $165. So at $165, we can lend 65%. We can get Ted a loan on this deal in the amount of $107,250. Now, what many of you are thinking is, well, then how's Ted going to get the loan? Well, we can put up $107,250. Ted's going to put up $10,000, which means we've got $117,250. And if he's buying it for $165, Ted is short $47,750. So he needs to come up with more cash. Okay? Now again, remember my point earlier. If Ted doesn't have the cash, he can come up with participation in the form of other collateral, other properties, partners that have collateral, cash from lines, cash. He can bring in the title to his RV for all I care, as long as the participation is there. And let me make this point, guys. If you're going to lend money to people, you need to make real sure that if they don't pay you back, it's going to cause them some pain. All right, we refer to this in the business as what's called pain of disconnect. Meaning, if they disconnect from this deal, it's going to be painful for us as lenders. If we're brokering, it's going to be painful for our funding sources. But we want to make sure it's painful for the borrower as well. I'm currently working with a gentleman who is in foreclosure. He's losing his property. And the loan that he did, he put up his RV. He had $150,000, this big 38-foot RV. He put it up as collateral. Well, when he stopped making his payments, they repoed the RV to help recover some of the loss on the house. And man, he was, unfortunately the guy's older, he's retirement years, and his plan to travel the country is gone because he put up the RV. But I'll tell you this, he fought tooth and nail to keep that property because of the pain of disconnect. So it's an important note to keep in mind here. All right, so, let's go back here. And we are in question 16. Sam wants to borrow $50,000 for a property currently worth $150,000. The borrowers had a bankruptcy 3 years ago, have no money and no job. Would you lend at what rate and with what conditions? Okay? So Sam wants to borrow $50,000 for a property currently worth $150,000. He had a bankruptcy, he has no money, no job. Would you lend at what rate? I'll tell you this, guys. If the property is worth $150,000 as it sits, it's worth $150,000 as it sits. If this is an acquisition loan and he's got nothing to put into it, again going back to what we can lend, if he needs to borrow $50,000, here's how this works. If this is a purchase, if he wants to borrow $50,000 on a purchase, we can only lend 65 cents on the purchase. So he can get $32,500 on the purchase. Okay? This is all that we could lend, which means that the borrower would have to come up with $17,500 or $17,500 to make up the difference. Okay? $17,500 to make up the difference. However, if this is a cash out refi, and it's worth $150,000. On a cash out refinance, we can lend 65% of the $150,000 price. So we're at $150,000 divided by 65. $150,000 at 65 cents on the dollar means we can give him $97,500, and all he was asking to borrow is $50,000. So in this scenario, he's getting $47,500 more because it was a refinance. Now, on that scenario, on the cash out refinance scenario, this cannot be owner occupied. It must be an investment property. Okay? Now, I'll tell you this, guys, as a broker, if I want to get paid fast, I'm going to go after landlords, people that own investment property that are looking for some cash out. I'm going to show you a deal later on today. Where he owns 2 homes free and clear. He's had them 5 years and he wants cash out. Guys, those are the easiest loans on the planet to get funding for. The left side purchase, if he's got $17,500 to put up, it's an easy loan. However, it says he has no money and no job, which means he's probably not going to come up with $17,500. So in that scenario, no, not going to lend. Question goes on to say, would you lend? On the left side, no, I would not lend. On the right side, yes, I would absolutely lend. And then at what rate? On the left side, I'm not lending, so no rate. And with what conditions, okay? On the right side, let's look at the cash out refinance real quick. Here's the terms that I would propose on this deal. On a cash out refinance, I would charge the borrower probably 6 points. and 12% interest on a 30-year AM, okay, 30-year AM with a 3-year call, okay. Now a call is very similar to balloon payment. Basically, this borrower will make monthly payments on this deal and then pay it off in 3 years. Now, why so high on the points and the fees? Well, simple, guys. He's got no credit. He's been through bankruptcy. He has no money and no job. So how is he going to make the monthly payments? That's something else that should be considered here. And we would look deeper into that. But for the simple scenario for what it is, I don't want to dig too deep into this. Those are approximately the points and the rates and the fees that we would charge on that deal. Okay? All right, finally, question number 17. You borrow $100,000 from Aunt May for 7 days, and you pay back $1,500. What was Aunt May's yield? Okay, this is a fun one. I love these. Okay, so Aunt May gives us $1,000. In 7 days, we pay Aunt May back $1,500. Okay, so Aunt May made $500 on a $1,000 investment, which, as you all are looking at this, represents a 50% return if this was a 12-month loan. However, it happened in 7 days. So how do we get Mary's or Aunt May's yield? Okay, here's how you do it. Take 360 days in a calendar. This is the financial calendar again. Divide it by 7. This is the number of times 7 happens in a 360-day period of time. Well, it happens 51. So if we take the 50% that Aunt May earned in a 7-day period times the 51 times we could lend it out, it's 51.5 times 50, which is 2,571.43, and that's a percentage, okay? So in this scenario with Aunt May, she effectively earned 2,571% interest on this loan. Now what's interesting is these types of loans, believe it or not, happen all the time. I have salespeople that work out of my office come to me and say, hey Lee, you know, my commissions this week are going to be $2,000. If you'll give me $1,500 right now, on Friday when my check comes, just go ahead and keep it. $1,500 now, say it's Monday. When my check comes on Friday, you give me $1,500 Monday, on Friday you keep $2,000. Well, I effectively just made $500 in a 5-day period of time on a $2,000 outlay. Actually, it's a $1,500 outlay. All right. If those sales consultants would actually do the math, they would never come to me and request such a thing. And I'll tell you guys, if they come to me and said that, I would just say, look, if you need some money, I'll give it to you. I'm not going to do this to you. Okay. But I understand yield, and you guys now understand yield as well. Okay. Now, before I leave this segment, I want to make sure I address any questions that you might have before we get into the next thing here. So let me look at my questions box, see if we have any quick questions to address. Okay, let's see here. Oh, lots of questions. All right. I'm going to limit the questions to about 3 minutes here. Okay, I cut out, what was the answer to number 5 is one of the questions. Answer to question number 5 was, what is the most you would lend on a deal currently valued at $100,000 but worth $250,000 after completion in order to achieve 65% loan to value? And this question is being asked by Bruce. Bruce, the answer is we could lend $65,000 on $100,000. Gwendolyn says, will you take a second position on the collateral? Second position on the collateral? Absolutely not. Good question, Gwendolyn. However, I'm not going to take a second position on the collateral. What I would do is I would increase the loan amount so that we could absorb the underlying debt and put us in first position not only on the property they're funding, but also on the collateral they're bringing to the table. Now, I don't want to belabor this, but I think it's a good question. So let me give you a quick scenario here, Gwendolyn. Let's say that somebody comes to us and they've got two properties. Property number one is, let's just say, $250, and they need to borrow $200. Okay? Well, if we do the math here, 200 at 250 means we're at 80 cents on the dollar, 80%, which means we need to recover 15% over here. So they say, well, you know, over here I've got a $100,000 property and I only owe 30 on it. Okay, so effectively they're at 30% on this property. Let me move this down so I can make sure you're all seeing me. They've got 30% on this property here. So if we take the collateral, I'm only at a 45% lien position on the second property, or property number 2. So what I would do is, if they need $200,000, when you blanket mortgage, when you cross-collateralize a deal, this $200,000 would pass over here. But what I would do to make this happen is I would pay off the first lien of $30,000, and instead of lending $200,000, I would lend $230,000. All right. So now we would be lending $230,000 on a property worth $350, and let's see if that achieves an amount we can lend at. 66 cents. Okay. So in this scenario, we've gotten, you know, and guys, I know that 65 is the threshold, but I would go to 66 on this, assuming that both property 1 and property 2 were good properties and that the value was there. But as you can see, by increasing, by taking this loan and paying off this first trust deed, it puts me in a first lien position on the collateral as well as on the property that's being acquired. Okay? So good question, Gwendolyn. All right. Let's see here. Okay, Bruce says, doesn't the annualized yield increase if compounding monthly? The answer is yes, Bruce. Barbara, the sound is scratchy and the volume too low. Mike, can we turn that up, the volume? Okay. Joe, if you can turn it up, that'd be great. Francis says, Lee, how do I get the software you said included in the program? It's actually in your Hard Money Mastery Home Study course in the back. So if you can't find it, call my office on Monday. Okay, Brian says, Lee, how often does the borrower default on these loans? Great question, Brian, and the answer is it's subjective. And the subjectiveness is based on the amount of pain you put into this deal in the form of a disconnect. On deals where the borrower has put no money down, no skin in the game, the default rate is incredibly high. And that's not only true in the hard money world, we're actually seeing it in the subprime world, and that's why we've experienced this huge recessionary devaluation of real value, because when you could just walk into any lender and get 100% financing, cash back at closing, neg-am loans, there was no pain of disconnect, which is why so many borrowers now are just walking out of their properties. So much so, in fact, FHA has eliminated the 3% as a down payment. Now you have to bring 3% down, you have to bring 3% in closing costs, 2.5% in excise tax and some other fees. FHA has expanded it now where the average homeowner is going to be bringing 10% of the acquisition to the closing table. Now, you know, it's kind of contrary to what the government has always tried to do, which is create homeownership, because homeownership makes for more stable communities. The homeownership is the American dream. If you're now requiring $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 down for the average homeowner, it's going to price a lot of people out of home ownership. But here's what I hope will happen. I don't disagree with what the FHA is doing. I actually think it's a good idea. Two things are going to happen. One, it's going to force first-time home buyers and people who want to purchase a home and get FHA financing, it's going to require them to save money, which Americans need to be doing more of. Second thing it's going to do is it's going to carve out a whole new private niche sector of pension funds and hedge funds and Wall Street money, creating loan opportunities where instead of the FHA 10% down requirement, you can only bring 5% down. And interestingly enough, guys, there are still 100% financing programs and cash back at closing programs available at conventional rates, but you do have to have outstanding credit, okay? Jerry, if you loan out someone else's money, don't you run into licensing problems needing a broker's license? Jerry, it's a great question and one you should ask your attorney, okay? I have an opinion, but you need to ask your attorney on that. I'm not sure who's asking this. What kind of legal documents do you use when you're having them put up collateral for their car, boat, house, etc.? Do you have the paperwork for doing that? The paperwork is going to vary depending on the deal, the state, the situation, which is why I don't provide the paperwork, but you can very easily get it through a local attorney. Basically what you're doing is you're having them pledge the bill of sale or the collateral or the title to the vehicle. Now, if you're going to take a vehicle as collateral, it's got to be free and clear. There cannot be other bank loans on the property, because if they're going to pledge the title to you as collateral for this loan, it cannot be encumbered with other liens. So the guy who had the RV, the reason he was able to pledge that as collateral on the investment is he owned it free and clear. He paid cash for this thing. Had he owed like $50,000 or $60,000 in collateral or in underlying debt, nobody would have lent him the money, okay? It's got to be free and clear if you're going to do those types of loans. Kurt says, any SEC concerns if I get money from other investors and we profit on any spread we can achieve? Guys, let me give you some advice here. If you're going to be lending other people's money, do not make your money on yield spread, all right? I know I showed you an example of yield spread where you're earning them 32 or you're earning 32 and paying them 20. Here's how I would achieve this without running into a lot of the questions I'm getting. Don't make your money on yield spread, meaning don't charge the borrower 12%, service the loan, and don't charge the borrower 18%, service the loan at 12, and then you make 6 in the middle. That's what we call yield spread. Don't do it that way. Make your money on points, on the upfront fees, so that you can avoid a lot of these challenges. But again, guys, your questions are getting... they're great questions, but I've got to really be cautious here that I'm not giving legal advice, and I'm going to show you some disclaimers here in a minute. Mark Capsby says, current value of a property, is it based on sold comps? Mark, if it's a refinance, then yes, it is based on sold comps. However, if it's an acquisition loan, so you're looking for money to purchase the property, then the loan to value that can be lent is going to be based on your purchase price, Mark, not on the value. So a lot of you have been bringing us loans where you're telling us, well, value's $250, but I'm buying it for $100 and I want 65% of $250. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. No investor is going to lend in that scenario. The way it works is if it's worth $250 and you're buying it for $100, then it's worth $100 as far as we're concerned. And we can lend up to 65%, or we have lenders that can lend up to 65% on your acquisition price. All right, let's see here. Laura says, I'm confused by the math on number 12. Why was $10,500 added on top of the $360,500? Okay, good question. Let me go back to this deal for you here, Laura. Okay. Let me move this down so I can make sure you guys can see. In this scenario, Laura, here's what we did. We were lending $350,000 at 3 points, which is $10,500, which is ours the day they sign, because points are front-end loaded. Laura, here's why I added it to the amount being lent, is because I didn't require, in this scenario, the borrower to bring $10,500 to the closing table. I merely took the amount in points and added it to the principal balance that they had to pay off. Why? Because I want to earn 18% interest per annum on the additional $10,500 in principal that they now owe me. Now, Laura, if you wanted to get paid at the closing table, which is fine, you would merely have them bring this to closing, and then we would only be charging interest on that $350,000 because the points will have been paid out in cash. Okay? Good question, Laura. All right, a few more here. Would you loan, Barbara says, would you loan on a multiple home, single family residence, multiple home? Barbara, if you're asking if I would lend on duplex, triplex, fourplex, as long as it's not going to be a personal residence, absolutely we would loan on that. Susan says, can you go after a home loan is closed and pay the points off? Can you go back after a home loan is closed and pay off the points? I'm not sure I understand the question, Susan, but if I'm understanding it correctly, can you go back after a home loan is closed and pay the points off? Hey, Susan, do me a favor. Expound on that. I'm struggling with exactly what you mean there. Quentin says, on a commercial property, will you allow a seller held second behind the private money first? Absolutely. We love those. In fact, let me give you a quick scenario on those, Quentin, because this is a deal that just came over this week. We have a person that needs to borrow $850,000 on a mobile home park. Okay, $850,000 on a mobile home park. The borrower or the seller says, if you bring 25% down, I'm sure all you math geniuses are doing the math in your head, 20% down on 850 is $170,000. What the seller is saying is he will carry the difference. So 850 less 170, the seller will carry the balance of $680,000 at 7% interest for 30 years. If you'll put up the $170,000 in cash. Now, the person who brought the deal to us, they said, hey, Lee, will you put up the $170,000 in cash and the seller carry the balance of $680,000 so that I can purchase this mobile home park, no money out of pocket? Well, if you look at it for what it is, you guys know the rules. We can only lend 65% of the purchase price of $65,000. So technically, the most we can lend on this deal would be $552,500. However, if the seller is willing to carry a second mortgage of $680,000, here's what I told them to do. Go back to the seller. And Quentin, this is where your question comes in. If the seller will subordinate, meaning our loan of $170,000 can be in first lien position, and the seller will subordinate their $680,000 in a second lien position, not only could we do this loan very easily, but there's a good chance that the borrower could get cash out of this deal too. And that's something else they requested, is they wanted not only the acquisition of $170,000, but they wanted $80,000 for fix-up and repair. So effectively, they wanted to borrow $250,000, but they only needed $170,000. So the person that brought this deal to us wants to leave closing with a check for $80,000. And what's funny about this deal, or great about this deal, is she can. And here's why. If you take $250,000, which is the amount we would be lending in first lien position, divide it by the amount of the acquisition, we're only lending 29 cents on the dollar. We're only putting up 29% of the acquisition of this property. The seller is taking the bulk of the risk here. So the seller has to agree to subordinate this loan of $680,000 to our first lien of $250,000. Now, some of you are probably thinking, why would any seller in their right mind ever agree to such a thing? Well, you've got to consider, what is a motivated seller? I don't know if you guys have ever owned a mobile home park or ever been involved in the management of a mobile home park, but it's not hard to become a motivated seller. And in dealing with people that have owned and managed, and in full disclosure, I have never, and I will never. And I know there's all kinds of webinars going on out there that, mobile home parks are cash cows, and I agree they are. What they don't tell you is that they are incredibly time intensive, and the management on them is really challenging. Unless you're getting into a 55 plus community somewhere down in Boca Raton, Florida or something, where your demographic makeup is wealthy, affluent seniors that just want a second home, those are okay. But any town USA, mobile home parks can be a little tricky. So my guess on this one, the seller is probably a little disenchanted with the investment and just wants to be done. And can't say that I blame him.